Okay, so we are ready to begin session 7 of The Road Goes Ever On. And this one is titled To Unmake a Ring. So when we left Warry and Badu in chapter 6, they had discovered that Maylor, the ranger of the north, was who was killed at the Forsaken Inn, was actually slain by the healer Berelas and the herbsmith, her linen. And they also found that Berelas was a bearer of a great ring, a ring of power, and that when she was threatened, or the ring was threatened, this creature of cold and frost appeared and would slay anything that threatened her. She was able to convince Warry and Badu to stop fighting when the creature had arrived, and she said that she would give herself up if they would agree to flee. Her linen was not having anything of that, but Badu, if I remember correctly, made short work of him and just pummeled him senseless, and then he was bound. I think you guys also found that her linen also has a glass, green glass amulet, much like the one you guys had found in Terry Mack's pack back at the Forsaken Inn. So we're going to pick up where we left off. We're in the, you guys are in the cottage of Rose Rushlight, who was deathly ill and actually probably would have died if not for Berelas using the power of her ring to heal both Rose and her older daughter, Violet. And we pick up, and you guys have just discovered that the ring can be unmade. And Warry, you believe that you know how it can be done. Her linen is still kind of hunkered down against the wall, sneering at you all. Spittle just kind of running down his mouth onto his chin. You see Berelas is just standing in a way so she doesn't have to look at him. And Eowyn, the young Breland boy who had idolized Berelas and was utterly crushed to find out that she was an agent of the shadow, he just looks crestfallen and silent. However, and Rose and Violet, they just look utterly lost, not knowing what is going on. So Berelas will speak first. So what is it? What is it we do now? What will you do with us? And she does now, though hesitantly, look over at her linen. And he shoots daggers at her.
Warry would attempt to speak, but look over at the large companion that he's been traveling with for a long time, who's just finished hacking at somebody for a while, and kind of this big, intimidating, hulking figure who's probably still breathing heavily after everything that happens, and shut his mouth and wait for him to speak, just to make sure that everything is calm.
Yeah, and Badu's probably still kind of hanging out, like standing over her linen. I imagine he's standing over her linen, still kind of like keeping his eye on the window outside where the creature was. Don't know if it's still there or not, but either way, he keeps his eye on the exact spot that he last saw it, whether it's there or not. Just kind of making sure that nothing, no developments on that front. At the moment he kind of looks back to see what's going on, he realizes that there's silence has fallen, and he's not really sure. He doesn't know what the last thing said was, but he sees Warry looking at him, and the last thing he can remember was just how we're going to try and dispose of this ring of power. And Badu sees Warry looking at him, Berelas in turn looking at him for an answer, and he kind of scratches his head a little bit. Uh, I think, I guess let's just, I don't know how to do that, so, it's kind of on you guys, that one there, I guess. He's kind of like scratching himself, like, I don't know.
I think what Badu is trying to say is that this ring is not going north to Gorlanc, whoever this person you spoke of is. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think that should happen at all.
Her linen near you, Badu, kind of rises up from his knees as if to stand. And he says, Berelas, you're a fool.
And at that, Badu just kind of like grabs his shoulder as he's like almost like 75% of the way up, stands him up all the way, picks him like a little bit too high, grabs a chair and just slides it right under him and plops him down into the chair. Boy, that's enough out of you. And just kind of gives him this bearing down presence over top him just to keep him, contained.
He growls, and you just see his chin is just he's got this crazy look in his eyes, and the spittle that had dribbled down his chin is now like spread across his cheeks. And he's breathing heavily. He says, just kill these fools.
Warry kind of walks a pace closer to him. That's enough out of you. What kind of person are you not to help a lass in trouble? You've been traveling with her for how long? Known about this for how long? And done nothing? And Warry would spit probably on his face and turn to face Berelas. I know you didn't ask for this, but I think I know how I can help. I've heard tales that these powerful rings can be unmade in great forges. There's a few that I know of. We could take it there.
Berelas she looks past you at her linen. His once beautiful visage marred by the evil that resides within him. And you see a look of like sadness on her face as she looks to you, Warry, and she says, I've caused so much pain. She shakes her head. She goes, I know you said that I didn't do this, but I did. I chose freely. I was not forced to be a bearer of this ring. I asked for it. Gorlanc, he was kind to me when others were not. I thought him a good man, a just man. It wasn't until it was too late that I realized. But I can set this straight now. Yes. Where are these forges you speak of, good dwarf?
Well, the dwarven forges should work. Erebor to the east, Moria to the south, or in the Blue Hills to the east. I know that's where some of your caravan were going.
She perks up at that, and the Blue Hills. Yes. That is where Vic and the others of your kind were going. Do you think it's possible? But what of and she looks to her linen beyond your shoulder, Warry. But what of him? And what of me? I mean, if the others were to find out that her linen and well, and I were responsible for the ranger's death.
Warrior kind of has like a torn look on his face and kind of eyes Badu a little bit. Like, that's tough kind of a look on his face.
Yeah, Badu kind of like cocks his head. He gets that look. He gets that kind of like, he closes his eyes with just, you're right. And he'll look back at Warry and to Berelas, and then he sees, just the concern on her face. He looks down at her linen, who's just a mess, and looks back to Warry and says, I think for the sake of destroying that thing, we'll have to let it slide for now.
I'll let a little bit of her slide, but it looks back to her linen again. He keeps talking of killing us. I'm not sleeping with this bastard near me.
Yeah, Badu kind of puts his hand on her linen's shoulder, and he says, "Well, I don't care what we do with this one, really."
Yeah, let him stay here for all I care.
I don't know if we should just let him be.
Badu, as you mentioned that you'll have some leniency with Berelas, you see that she visibly relaxes a bit. But then she says, to the last part, she says, no, he cannot stay here. He's too dangerous.
Agreed. If we leave him here, he'll just go tell this Gorlanc fella what we've done, and then they'll be after us. I think we gotta keep a close eye on him, or get rid of him.
Warry kind of scratches his beard a little bit. There were some wolves that were after us, if I remember right, just the other day. They should still be around.
I see where you're going with that.
Berelas, she shakes her head and she goes, no, they weren't after you. They were after the ring. The shadow, it corrupts everything.
Well, they went after that jewel in my pack. Maybe they'll go after the one around his neck.
They were probably confused, sensing the ring. Grabbed the amulet instead.
Well, new developments cause issues, I guess. I don't mind doing it if that's what we're gonna do. I mean, it's just a thing, I guess.
She takes a couple steps closer to you, Badu, and she places one of her small hands on your large arm. And she looks up at you and she says, you can't do it. If you do it, you won't be any better than him. Certainly, there must be justice that can be had. If that means that justice for me as well, then. But I'll not have you murdering him on my conscience.
And Badu kind of strokes at his beard a little bit. He looks up inquisitively, kind of pondering what she's saying.
She is kind of right, Badu. But we can't turn him over to anybody, because we might as well just turn Berelas over too. They'd both be in trouble. We need one, not the other.
You hear a clearing, the sound of someone clearing their throat, and you hear another woman's voice. and it's the older woman sitting up in her bed. You might remember she had kind of asked earlier what was going on, and she repeats herself. I'm thankful that my daughter and I are feeling much better, but frankly, I have no idea what you all are talking about or why you're in my home. Um, I wonder if it might be better if you left. And you see that she's nervous and she's kind of wringing her hands on the edge of her blankets. That and if you remember, there's just like this pile of blankets that Berelas had you guys put on these women before she healed them, and she's kind of just peeled these back a bit, and she's just kind of wringing at them with her hands nervously, and you can see that she is frightened by what you guys are talking about. And her daughter doesn't say a word. She's probably in her late teens.
Yeah, at that, Badu would he'd take a quick glance outside. Is the specter still chilling?
No.
It's since gone.
At some point it left.
Vanished. All right. So at that, Badu would walk over towards her. And then he would kneel down next to. Sorry, I got an update. It's distracted me.
She's standing right next to you, so you wouldn't even have to walk over to her. She actually put her hand on you. It's still resting on your arm.
No, not Berelas. He would walk over to the woman.
Oh.
Yeah. He would walk over to the woman and kneel down, probably like in between the two of them. And he would kneel down, and kneeling down still just probably a head taller than them if they're on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just kind of smile, like a really warm smile, like you'd expect from a real big cuddly bear. And he would just kind of look at both of them and be like, "Sorry about that, ladies. Bit of a political matter. We'll get out of here." And just kind of stand up and turn around and probably head over to grab her linen and leave.
Warry would also look outside. I remember with all the screaming and yelling that was going on, it might have attracted. Is anybody else from the town or the market that we were in came up this way?
No. The cottage is probably far enough outside of the village of Combe that no one heard the commotion. Daisy was left behind. So as you do look out, let me actually retcon that. As you do look out, you see Daisy kind of just slowly making her way up the path from the village to the cottage.
And sorry, remind me of who she was again.
Daisy was the younger daughter, the one that was waiting at the crossroads.
Gotcha.
And actually had flagged you guys down.
Good. I would look outside too and just be like, well, no one followed me running and screaming from the marketplace, so I guess we can get out of here, and we won't literally be causing a scene.
Okay. I think you caused the scene, Warry, when you went running down to Combe.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like, since they didn't follow me back, the scene's not right outside the cottage.
Right. If people are coming, they're probably coming a little bit later after they kind of build up their courage. Right. So when Daisy sees you guys step out onto the front door of her family cottage, she kind of stops in her tracks, and she just kind of looks expectantly at you all. And maybe she takes a slight step back when she sees her linen in a kind of a roughed up state. Yep. And as Badu's kind of like holding him tight. And she yells out, "Is everything okay? Is my mother and sister, are they well?"
Yeah, and Badu would kind of hand the reins of her linen over to Warry, just, it kind of haphazardly, and walk over to Daisy and kneel down next to her, kind of pat her on the head with his big, meaty palm, and just smile at her and say, "Oh, your mother and your sister are all better now. Take good care of them, okay?" And kind of like, pat her on the back, like nudging her inside to go see them.
Okay. Yeah. She runs past you. She only slows down for a minute or two. Not a minute or two, but she slows down a little bit as she approaches you, Warry, Berelas, her linen, and Eowyn. And then she kind of skirts around you and disappears in the door. And then you can hear her exclamation as she sees her mother and sister, and they appear well. But then the door closes, and you can just hear the muffled sounds of their excitement.
Good. I would probably push um, push the reins of the guy in front of me and make him walk in front of me. As I turn and kind of address everybody and just be like, well, the caravan might still be waiting for us if we get up there. We can head in that direction, but we might as well figure out what the hell to tell them.
Yeah. So if you remember, they said they would wait 3 hours for you at the crossroads. It's probably been the better part of 2 hours. So it's going to be tight whether or not you'll get back to the crossroads in the 3 hour mark. But even if you miss it, you're probably just going to be just behind them. So you make your way, and as you kind of shove her linen ahead of you, again, he just kind of looks over his shoulder and he just sneers at you. And he says, "This isn't over, dwarf."
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. And then he kind of staggers a bit on, he trips over something as you kind of shove him along. And he almost falls over, but you kind of tug on the line and it keeps him on his feet. But you hear this what is it? Kind of a ooh, as you kind of pull it tight, and it kind of puts pressure on his shoulders. And walking behind you all, Berelas is walking alongside you, Warry, and she's just very somber. And Eowyn is just walking behind you all.
Yeah, I guess I would probably just like them walk in silence for a little bit, just seeing if somebody would perk up or say anything, kind of thing, because this is a hairy situation. Wow, couldn't talk.
Yeah. So as you guys are walking along, you make your way unaccosted. You pass a few of the local villagers, just whether they're just walking along the path or it's a cart carrying wares. You get a kind of a raised eyebrow, but no one asks you what is going on. They I guess they figure your business and we'll mind ours. And you see ahead of you the crossroad, and you can make out the outline of the carts and ponies that make up the caravan. So the caravan is still there. You can see the others in the caravan milling about. You can almost even make out the form of Mirabar, all covered in his many fur coats. Excuse me, sitting up atop his horse. The two younger dwarves run forward when they see you, waving, greeting, and their greeting is cut short when they see that you're actually that her linen is bound.
And as we kind of like come into view and we see them starting to come over, Badu would kind of like lean down to Warry and be like, "What's our story on this?"
I was going to ask you the same question, and I would look over to Berelas as well, and then to Eowyn, who's probably been deathly quiet this whole time. Just be like, "You went crazy?"
Right, bad potion. That's what we're going with. And Badu would kind of stand up and like walk forward to meet the two dwarves, like along the way, just to kind of like usher them into the situation, and be like, then just running up and be like, "Oh, this is happening." And be like, "All right, so some stuff happened," and basically Basically, just gonna try and spin that her linen like made a bad potion or drank a bad potion and has basically lost his marbles and like tried to attack Berelas, and basically tried to, is on a rampage, basically just tried to kill her, and just see if I can get that to pass.
Okay. So you trying to deceive them? Obviously, sounds like.
I would think, yeah, probably just a regular deception.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a 10 total.
So Narvig.
Hold on, I'm gonna take the inspiration on that one.
Okay.
I don't want to botch it. I think I gotta. It's better with a 13.
Okay. So Narvig, one of the young dwarfs, he kind of reaches up with one of his hands, and he's kind of stroking at his blonde beard, still short by dwarf standards. He says, "Attack Berelas, you say?" And he kind of looks past you to Herlinen and Berelas. And then Narvi, who's the other young dwarf, you guys would remember him as the one that has spent the most time with Herlinen, one of the one that would often be found drinking with him every evening when the caravan had stopped. And he kind of puts both his hands on his hips and he says, "Why would he do that then? What? It doesn't make any sense to me."
Yeah, that's what I said. The only thing that we think is he was brewing up some potion, I guess, and for the sick women, and I guess he took a sip and it's no good. I don't know.
As you're saying that, Badu, Herlinen just screams. He goes, "It's a lie! They're lying!"
And I'll push Herlinen a little bit forward, and while still holding the manacles, be like, "Yeah, go ahead and tell them how we're all evil too, and there was this dark frost creature that you summoned, and how we should all die. Go ahead, tell them all that too. Come on, tell them your story."
He looks at you, Warry, his eyes wild, and he says, "It is true."
Yeah, that's what he's been saying the whole time. We can't make heads or tails of it.
She did it. And you see him, he kind of like tries to take a couple of steps towards Berelas, and she steps back, frightened. And he says, "It's her. I'm just here to guard her."
Warry would grab the reins.
Spittle is just flying from his mouth. His eyes are just, like wide with and crazy.
Yeah, Warry would kind of like, act like put his feet to the ground and hold the rope as tight as he can, like he's holding like a large dog trying to like go after some squirrel or something, and be like, "Come on, see guys, we gotta do something."
It's the only thing we could think of. He was relentless. Huh. Weird.
He turns, Herlinen turns towards Narvi, and he goes, "It was her." And, he still got this crazed look on his face, and he's like straining against the rope that's holding you, Warry. Give me athletics to see if you can hold the rope as he's pulling against it.
Athletics, you say, huh? Oh, come on. 11.
Yeah. He surprises you with this sudden tug on the rope, and it pulls free of your hands, and he runs right up to Narvi, his arms still bound behind him, and he's like, "She did it. She killed the ranger at the inn. It was her."
And Badu would like quickly step in front of them and like put his hand out, basically like grab him by the chest to kind of hold him back, but he can still say what he's saying to him, like spitting in his face almost. Yeah. But yeah, Badu kind of like, after he says his bit, kind of like pulls him back, kind of probably like grab the reins and almost like choke him out at the same time, like put his arm around his neck, basically just to secure him and kind of turn to the two dwarves and be like,
We still don't know what happened there, but he keeps saying all this stuff. We don't know if it's true or not.
Narvig takes a step closer to his brother, and he looks at you, Badu, and he says, "Let the man speak. Why do you hold him that way? Are you afraid of something he would say?"
I'm afraid that he's gonna attack you. You don't know what we had to do to get him off of Berelas.
And he kind of like loosens him up. Like he wasn't trying to like full choke him out. He just kind of like loosens his grip, and he's just like holding him by the chest now. Be like, listen, look, it's cool, but you know he's not stopping her linen from saying nothing. But he just looks like he's trying to give off as much like, you know, look, this is for your own safety.
Right. Her linen kind of shakes free of you a little bit as you loosen your grip. And he says, "Go on. Look at her. Do you see any marks upon her? Any signs that she was accosted? We are in this together. She and I. And they would lay all the blame at my feet. Ask her. Ask her, Narvi." And he yells past Narvi, "Any of you, ask her." And this has kind of garnered the attention of the others over at the caravan. You see Mirabar has craned his old, almost skeletal neck in your direction. And you see Ederic making his way, his spear rested across his shoulder, walking towards you. And you also see Vic a few strides behind him.
Yeah, Warry would kind of just like let this play out. He's hoping that that Herlinen would just bury himself in his own words. He hopes.
Yeah, basically just gonna kind of let him keep spitting out like a madman, and just kind of like, you know, and Badu probably like lowers his head and shakes it, like, you know, saddened, like, oh, he's lost it. It's too much.
You just see his chest is just heaving. You know, his eyes are just darting around, crazed. His mouth not frothing, but he's not doing anything to contain the spittle that is just dribbling off over his lip. And when they come close, he says, "No, maybe something you didn't expect him to say." He goes, "Go, look what hangs around her neck. Dare any one of you touch it, see what happens." And he tries to pull away from you, Badu, to go towards Berelas.
Yeah, and of course he just kind of like, you know, like he tugs, but Badu just kind of keeps him mostly where he is. Like, you know, he can move around enough, but not enough to get anywhere. And he basically just I mean, he'll probably speak up at that note and be like,
"Hey, so I guess he says that there's this ring thing that Berelas has, and apparently it summons a demon. I don't get it, but we can't confirm any of this. We already tried."
Warry, question for just out of character real quick. Do we know if most of the dwarves saw the demon thing and that wolf attack as well?
Yeah.
So Warry would speak up and be like, "To be honest," and he kind of like looks to Narvig and Vic Volker and all of them and just be like, "He's been this way since the wolf attack. I think that demon creature has him going crazy."
Ederic comes as you're finishing that, Warry, and he says, "What's going on here? You guys go to see to a sick woman and her child, and you come back, one of you bound and the rest of you talking nonsense.
Hey,
One
leave
of
it
you,
up.
tell me what is going on.
Leave it up to Herlinen's potion. Made his hair blue. He drank this one, and now he's stark mad.
Yeah, and Badu would kind of like nudge himself between her linen, like turn her linen aside, and like lean into. I'm sorry, what's his name again?
Herlinen or Ederic?
No, the oh, was it Ederic who came up? I thought it was the other guy.
No,
Adept
Ederic is the cavern,
garbage.
the
So
team leader of the.
yeah, so he would like turn her linen aside and like lean into Edric and be like,
Honestly, he was mumbling all this mumbo jumbo when we were heading over there. Didn't think nothing of it. Get there, drinks a potion, loses his mind. I had to hold him down.
Well, why would he drink a potion? He was there to kill the woman, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was testing it to make sure that it was good. I guess. Seemed alright. It was not good at all.
He kind of plants the butt of his spear in the ground as he kind of surveys the lot of you. Ewan, you were there? Come here, boy. What did you see? You see Eowyn move past you all. He pauses a moment and looks at Berelas before he walks up past you, Badu, to stand near the both you and Ederic. And you see him. He looks at you, Badu, and then he looks at Ederic. She's not who she says she is. She's not. Ederic looks at him and says, "What are you on about, boy?" And then he pauses, and Eowyn's, tears are starting to run down his eyes, and he goes, "It's true. Everything he says is true." And he turns and looks at Berelas, and she goes, "Why did you lie to me? Why did you have to have that damn ring?" And he turns and he runs. Ederic is, "Eowyn! Where? Eowyn!" And he turns to you guys. He says, By all the Vala, what is going on here?"
God damn it.
And Berelas starts to take a few steps forward.
Can I intercept Berelas?
Oh, yeah, you certainly could.
I want to put my hands on her and just be like, "You shouldn't. Don't," and like whisper to her a little bit.
You hear her linen laughing.
Can I oh man, while I'm like touching her and she's like doing that, can I try to take off the necklace that she has with the ring on her?
She, as you come up, give me a deception to see if she sees it in your face what you're planning to do.
Oh man, my charisma sucks balls.
I love having your stats right up here on the overlay.
I know, 14, so a 13.
Yeah. She gently takes both your hands into hers, and she whispers so that only you can hear. She goes, "Warry, don't do it. If you even touch the ring, even touch the the chain that it's hanging upon, it will come.
Damn.
So,
I was hoping like to just touch the ring like in Lord of the Rings and or touch the necklace and not touch the ring.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, she'll just kind of hang his head and like shit.
As before Berelas, like, you know, while they're kind of doing that, Badu just kind of turns back and to Edric and he just kind of sighs. He says,
Hey, so Erlin here.
and he kind of like nudges him at the same time.
Yeah, Herlin, his maniacal laughter is kind of just it's more just broken, kind of like
Yeah. So
Erlin here is basically forced Berelas to bear this ring. Essentially, it has some sort of power or some. I don't know. I don't care. But he killed Malor and he made her cover it up.
So basically now I'm trying to say, yeah, she did it, but he's been pulling the strings the whole time, and try and shift all of the blame back to Herlinen, while at the same time giving part of like his story. So I don't know if that would be like a separate deception or something.
you want to give some credence to his.
Yeah, so I want to say like, yeah, well, what he's saying is true, but it's not the whole truth. Like, it's true, but he's actually being a shithead, and you know, we were just trying to cover up for her because we figured it would be easier.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely try that. You definitely could, by looking at Edric, you can see that he's frustrated because he's trying to puzzle out what's going on here.
So at this point, I'm trying to like compromise and be like, yeah, well, she did some stuff, but it's because he made her. And that's going to be a 12. So
yeah. Edric shakes his head, and you know that he's not having anything of it. You hear Vic standing next to his two sons, and he goes, "Knew there was something wrong with those two. Just knew it. Corrupting my boys, he was. And that one, to that poor lad," and he looks off in the distance where you can't even see Eowyn anymore. Something told me, right to the roots of my beard, tell you. Edric is nodding his head to the Vic's words. Berelas looks at you, Warry. She smiles at you. She says, "It's okay. It'll be okay." And she steps forward past you, Warry, and alongside you, Badu. And she goes, "No, I will not have anyone lie anymore for me. It is all true. I bear a ring of power. And while I did not kill Malor with my own hands, I am culpable in it, because a creature bound to this ring slew the ranger, and I said nothing about it." And she says, "That wretched creature there, he threw the body into the well."
I take it she's pointing to her linen.
Yeah, she kind of just indicates her linen. Yeah, no, she's talking about you, Warry.
Well, I wasn't.
That wretched creature there threw him into the well, and this big one, yeah, it was all his idea. He's a mastermind.
I wasn't sure if she meant the creature itself that she summoned. That's all.
Damn you guys, I never even thought of putting a spin like that in it.
Man, I should have imprisoned them. Revisions.
So,
Revisions.
you know,
we have to make revisions.
Yeah. We're gonna retcon everything. So
Session 2.
Edric just kind of looks like stunned by Berelas's confession, and then looks to her, his eyes drift to you, Badu, then to her linen, who's just smiling maniacally. And then lastly on you, Warry. So, what am I to do with them? You bring them to the magistrate in Bree?
And Badu just speaks up. He says,
Oi, alright, so, okay, so she has to bear this awful power, and he's been making her do bad stuff with it. So, I mean, it's not too far off. But hey, listen, don't worry about that.
and he kind of like pulls Herlin in like back, standing up straight. He was kind of hunched over. He pulls him up straight. He says,
You don't have to worry about him. I'll take care of him.
And Warry would speak up and just be like, not sure what to do about them, but we know what we're going to do with Berelas. And he kind of like eyes Vic a little bit, kind of like directly, like eye to eye from however far away he is. All the rumors about rings of power, I've heard rumors that they can be unmade in a dwarven smith. So we're heading to the Blue Hills. We're going to free Berelas of this burden. That's what we're going to do.
You see Edric is just kind of working through. He says, bring them. Bring them. Vic, Narvi, back to the caravan. And you see the dwarves, they're the last to leave. He starts taking long strides back towards Mirabar, and the dwarves follow, all of them casting a backwards glance at the four of you. And then you see Edric talking with Mirabar as you guys approach.
I'd probably just look around everybody else, just kind of in that like, oh man, like this is not going well kind of look.
yeah.
And as you guys get to the caravan, you see Edric nod his head. You see Mirabar looking over at you, and he's just got his eyes are just these little pinpricks of dark. And he kind of looks at you, and then he turns on his horse, moving to the front of the caravan. And Edric walks up to you. He goes, Mirabar says, we bring them to the magistrate in Bree. So that's what we'll do. This murder took place in Bree. Therefore, it falls into his jurisdiction.
The magistrate has no power over something like this.
The magistrate will decide. And Edric just punctuates that by kind of spinning on his heel and just yells out he goes, let's get this caravan moving. We'll be in Bree within the quarter hours. I mean, the next 4 hours. And the carts start rolling forward. What do you guys do?
I'd probably look to everybody and just I wouldn't say shrug, but just kind of be like, it's the best we got at the moment.
Badu's not very happy that his lie didn't work. Kind of upset that he wasn't able to swing that. He'll like look back at Berelas and Warry. I mean, because basically at this point we're the ones who are gonna be basically figuring this out. And he just, I mean,
We have no obligation to this lot. We could go our own way, just traveling with them.
True. It would help, though. The dwarves, they know where the Blue Hills are. One's even a smith.
Aye, but how many smiths do you think are at the Blue Hills?
Agreed, but I've never been there. I only know roughly where to go. I could get us lost just like we did in the forest.
Aye. I just got a bad feeling about this whole magistrate business.
Same. I say we go to Bree, but we don't stay for the magistrate.
Aye.
And I would look over to Berelas to see what she thinks.
Yeah, as you guys were just talking about this, she had actually fallen into step walking along. She's a little bit ahead of you with the caravan. You know, head kind of held low.
Guess I would turn to Badu and just be like, one step at a time. Bree first, next step later.
Aye.
and Badu would kind of like look to Berelas and get her attention.
Oi,
And when she looked at him, he'd say,
you can atone for your sins after we free you of this burden. Something no magistrate can do.
She kind of gives you a half-hearted smile. Kind of gives you the impression that she hopes that you're right. She nods and then she turns and starts walking again. So you guys make the rest of the journey to Bree, and probably not even 3 hours. Your caravan is passing through the gate, the south gate of Bree, and into the city, or not really a city, the large town of Bree, set upon its hill. And Ederic leads you, Berelas and her linen, to a large building set in the like in the center of this square. Seems to be the town hall of this of Bree. And he talks with a couple of men that are outside of it. They're just kind of lounging. They look past him at the rest of you. They nod their heads. One of them stands up, and you can see that he has a ring of keys hanging from his belt. And he points to you, Badu, and he says, "Bring them forward."
Badu would kind of look to Warry, like, do we go along with this, or?
Warry would just kind of shrug at the moment and just be like, let's see how it plays out.
Aye. I'm too tired to keep running from this.
He just kind of like lazily, kind of walk forward with her linen.
Yeah. And when you come forward with her linen, the man yells. He says, "The woman too." And Berelas kind of walks up alongside you, Badu.
I would follow just half a step behind her.
As they're walking, Badu would kind of just speak like not a whisper, but not a full-fledged tone, without making any, trying to like not without making it look like he's talking to Berelas, but just like, saying stuff as they're passing, keeping his eyes on them, hopefully keeping the words muttered under his beard. He would say,
just let us do the talking.
She looks at you and just kind of nods her head. The man that had waved you guys forward says, "Oh, no, they're not both bound, just the man."
Aye, he's the one who's trouble. She's just a victim in all this.
He nods his head, maybe more of just acknowledging that giving you some trouble. Then okay, follow me. And he leads you into this large building. It's a 2-story building, and you follow him, and he leads you down a couple of different corridors before he gets to a like a heavily iron-bound door. He pulls out his ring of keys and he flips through them and unlocks the door. You pass through, and you can see beyond this door. There's a small table and chair, and beyond that, you see what appear to be cells. He goes up and unlocks one, and signals that you are to put her linen in there.
Yeah, and he would gladly put her linen in there.
Mm-hmm. And and then he would close it, and he would probably unbind her linen if you won't.
Yeah, I mean, Badu probably like gets into the door and like just kind of takes off the lazy bindings that they had on him. He's not like super strong anyway, so just kind of quickly undoes him and just like pushes him in there, probably pushing him forward onto his knees or something.
Yeah. So the guard closes the door and is locking it. You notice there's like a little barred window in the door, and her linen's face appears in it. And he laughs and he says, "Ha! Be your undoing too, Berelas. You've unmade us both." He said the master will still get what is his. You fool girl. And
Badu looks to the officer and is like,
"Can you like close that or something? He's annoying."
He kind of looks at you and he just shakes his head no. And Berelas just responds to her linen and says, "Our fates may be the same, but my conscience will be clear, her linen." And as she says that, you hear the clank and the workings of a key as the man unlocks another cell. "This here, that's for the woman."
Do you really need to put a woman in a cell?
It's not my decision. Told that she's committed a capital crime. She's murdered someone.
Don't you think it best she come talk to the magistrate too?
He nods his head and he says, "He will, tomorrow."
Aye, fair enough.
And then just look at Berelas and be like, "Ah."
Yeah.
It can only do so much.
This entire time, just in case, Badu has been memorizing their descent through this palace and trying to make sure to look at the.
Oh, you mean Warry?
Oh yeah, sorry.
I do that all the time, man. Don't worry.
Oh my god! But yeah, he's been basically trying to like memorize how he got to this location and possibly find out what shape-ish of key the guy used to like open the cell and all that kind of stuff. Just like thinking back in his head, oh man, I always get to places I'm not supposed to be. I may have to do it again.
Yeah, they're pretty simple, brief forged keys. Nothing compared to some of the more elaborate keys that you have seen used in the dwarf holds to secure chests of precious items.
In other words, replicable.
Yeah. Or pickable locks that would be pickable.
Yeah, that's what he's thinking this whole time. Like if there's shit that's got to go down, he's got to be able to get her out. So he's just memorizing all that kind of stuff.
Berelas would smile at the two of you and say, Do not worry, friends. I will be fine. And she goes quietly into the cell, and you hear him close and lock the door. And in the nearby cell where her linen is, you just hear that laughing again. All right then, out with you. And when he gets you outside of the cells, he stops at the small table and he says, "I'll need their names for the ledger." And I imagine you guys would give him their names.
Yeah, Badu would probably be like,
Oh, wait, the guy who is
and he would like spell it out for him. And after he's done, he'd be like,
oh, you should really look at putting a little door on that window thing.
He smiles and says, "I'll take it under advisement." And then he asks your names, and he says, "Are you witnesses then?"
Aye. Somewhat.
Would you speak in defense of either of these two?
Aye.
Yes.
And he would ask who?
Berelas.
yeah, they give the same answer.
Probably at the same time.
You say it at the
They
same
probably,
time, yeah.
Probably like look at each other, look at him, and be like, really, out of the two of those, like how we had them, like which one do you really think?
Yeah. So he writes. You see him write your names down after Berelas's names. And he goes, "Where will you be staying in Bree? Will you be at the Pony?"
Sounds good to me.
We've just got here. Haven't really thought about it yet.
Now.
All right. So he would nod to that, and he would give you directions to get to the Pony. And then he would kind of usher you back out of the city building and back out into the courtyard and the street.
Right. What time is it roughly? Did we get here?
It's probably late afternoon.
All right, then. Yeah, I'd probably just follow his directions with Warry and head straight to the Pony.
Yeah. The layout of the town is fairly simple. You have no problem finding the prancing pony. You can hear the sounds of conversation, and you could smell the pleasant smells of cooking meats and breads as you approach. As you walk in, the common room is where the tap room is quite full. Off in the distance, you can hear someone grumbling and to a serving girl, and you see the hunched form of Mirabar, all the rings upon his fingers kind of just catching some of whatever light there is from the lanterns and a small fire that is burning in the main hearth of the room. And you see the dwarves all sitting by themselves at a table as well. As you walk in, this large pot-bellied man with thinning hair smiles at you both and says, "Welcome to the Pony. A meal, a drink, looking for rooms maybe. We've not
All
many
of the
left,
above."
but
I have a feeling that Warry would say it at the same time that Badu did all of the above.
We
Yeah.
are synced now. This is what's happening forever. You say everything at the same time. Like twins.
Yeah, you guys are in sync. I love it. You guys should start a little group. So he smiles at that warmly, and he says,
I imagine that he like looks at us like as we say it, but at the same time, like, oh, and Badu just like goes,
"We're twins."
"Yeah, yes. I'll call you Arnold, and he's Danny."
Nice.
And so he says, "Yeah, just sit anywhere you want. We don't stand on much ceremony here at the Pony. And someone will be there to serve you momentarily." And he just kind of goes off to doing whatever his next task is. and you guys are able to. Is there a specific place that you guys would want to sit?
I would assume probably by ourselves yet. I think Warry wants to talk to the dwarves, but not yet.
Okay. Yeah, you see them. They're kind of bent over. Three of them probably are locked in a conversation. Vic's brother Volgar seems to be just kind of oblivious to anything that's going on. Yeah, so you're able to find a spot where you can sit down. It's probably as private as you're going to get here. People are starting to filter in for their finishing their daily tasks and coming in for a warm meal or a few drinks. So yeah, you sit down. Someone comes up, takes your order, and then pleasant enough, and they leave.
And I'm just getting simple food, lots of drink, probably twice to 2 drinks.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And just seeing what else is here.
Down.
Yeah. So is there anything specific you guys are going to do or talk about? You're able to get a room. You guys would have to share a room because they don't have. They only had a few
brothers
left.
It's all right, we're brothers.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot. Twins.
Yeah. I'm used to it.
The only thing that I would probably want to do is just probably gauge the mood of the dwarves, and if I could listen into like maybe what they're talking about.
Yeah, is Edric and I know you said Mirabar was there. Edric and like the rest of the whole crew, Ewan and all of them, are they there too?
You do not see Eowyn. You don't see Edric either.
Okay, so I'm probably off doing their own thing. So just Mirabar and the dwarves?
Yeah, Mirabar and the 4 dwarves. So you want to sit close enough that you can maybe eavesdrop on what they're saying?
Yeah, as best we can.
Yeah, so give me perception.
Finally, 19.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's
same.
Well enough. So you hear them talking, and they're talking about what you would expect them to talk about. They're talking about the Berelas and her linen. You hear one of the younger dwarves, Narvi, saying, "Can you believe that they killed a ranger at the inn?" And you hear Narvig say, "I don't know. I've always had my doubts about that her linen." And you see Narvi his lip kind of curls a bit at that. And the man couldn't hold his alcohol. And Vic says, "I didn't trust either one of them. I said it once, I say it again. But they'll get theirs." And they don't really say much beyond that. And
Okay.
Volgar every once in a while just kind of grunts.
I just kind of wanted to gauge the how they're taking this situation. So I'd probably say after a little bit, probably after 20 minutes or so of drinking, I would approach the table with 4 beer or 4 ales or whatever they were probably drinking in hand, and plop them down.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing if they would accept the drinks and
Right.
if I could sit.
So just as you're coming up, you hear Narvig say to his father and his brother, he says, "You don't think that creature was," and that's as you walk up, and they all look up at you.
And I hand them the ales, and kind of sit awkwardly for a half second, seeing if they're going to take them.
Narvi doesn't think twice before grabbing the cup you offer him. Narvig is not far behind. Volgar grabs it as well. Vic kind of eyes you for a second, and he kind of gives you a stern nod. he goes, rough business that, huh?
And I nod. And say, yeah, can never trust a man that can't hold his alcohol. And I kind of sit down, or pull up a chair if I could.
Yeah.
And what did you say they were saying right before I walked up about the creature?
Yeah. There was some disbelief on whether or not that the creature was even tied to those two.
So I would sit down and put my hands or my elbows under the table, be like, the creature is tied to Berelas, as she said. It's a creature of unspeakable evil. I did see this ring of power. It's a beautiful ring, it is. But that's the problem. It's too beautiful. It needs to be unmade. And I know you guys are heading to the Blue Hills. And we could use all the help we can get.
You see Narvi, he looks at Vic. He looks at you and then he looks at Vic and he says, it's true, Father. All of it. The ring. I've seen it myself. Narvik, you too. Tell him. And you see Vic turn to Narvik, and Narvik kind of avoids his father's glare, and then he nods his head yes, and he takes a big pull from his cup. I told you that ring. I told you there was something about it, brother. Narvi says.
I would take a large sip and nod as well. There is something about it, and that's the problem. Nobody should have anything like that. It's not her fault she has it. Even if she took it or was given that ring, they shouldn't exist.
So you say the ring is magic, Vic says.
I nod, almost with like fear in my eyes, kind of look like, yeah, I've seen it kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of narrows his eyes as he's looking at you. He says, how do you know it's magic? Does it call forth that beast?
He finishes his long sip and nods again. It does. If you try to harm her, that's what started all of this mess. Those wolves, they attacked. You guys all saw it. That creature came. It's because the wolves were attacking her. And the village, while you were all waiting for us at the caravan, she summoned it to heal the guy or something. And then when we got aggressive, it attacked us. All it does is defend its wielder.
He shakes his head. So are we safe? From this ring?
It seems so, as long as you don't hold any ill will toward her.
But what of the magistrate?
Warry kind of shrugs, and I have no idea what he's planning. All we'll know is that he'll probably try to take it from her, and it'll be released. We can't let that happen, or more innocent people will die.
Vic kind of grunts and he goes, I don't know if you noticed that tree as we passed the crossroads. Folks around here used to call that the hanging tree, though honestly, I can't think of the last time they have hung someone from there.
I did not notice it. Do you really think that they would hang somebody?
I don't profess to know their laws here, but to kill someone, A ranger, no less. If it could be proven that they did it, then I dare say that that'll most likely be their fate.
Well, we'll have to make sure they don't get hung, or at least Berelas. I could almost care less about her linen.
All the dwarves are kind of listening intently as you and Vic are talking. You see heads nod. And Vic kind of leans in close, putting his elbows on the table. He says, "What are you thinking?"
Fortunately, I'm not thinking too much. I'm kind of a plan as you go. But I saw the inside of the jail. I can get her out. Or we can wait until they're transporting her. Or who knows? Maybe the magistrate will let her go. We have no idea what he thinks will happen. But I don't want to find out.
The two younger dwarves are kind of nodding to that, Warry. Volgar just says, "I told you, creature of shadow, creature of shadow." And he's just kind of rocking in his seat. And Vic goes, still leaning on the table, says, "Now don't go doing anything foolish, getting yourself killed." He goes, "Whatever you decide, we'll have nothing of it." And he kind of shoots this look to his two boys.
Well, regardless if you'll have nothing of it, we're probably heading to the Blue Hills. You'll see it one way or another, whether you help or not.
We'll see. Thanks for the drink.
As that kind of starts to wind down, probably after Wari had got up from the table, Badu hung back a little bit, probably finished what was left on his turkey leg, and he'll actually try and where's Marabar in the pub?
Where do you think that old man? He's sitting as close to the fire as he possibly could,
Yeah,
wrapped up in his furs.
So Badu will actually kind of get up with his drink and head over to Marabar and sit across from him, kind of more of like conducting a business transaction than like coming over to say hi to a friend. Like he's sitting down and it's pretty obvious that he's not there to be friendly. Like he just had some questions for him. And I'm assuming like Marabar, just based on so far, he probably just picks up the same demeanor of, like, well, let's talk business then.
Yeah, and he's a businessman. He's kind of holding this goblet of wine in both of his hands, and he kind of peers over the cup at you as you approach.
Yeah, and Badu will take the seat without really saying anything, take the seat across from him and pull it out. He'll sit down. He sets his drink down. He looks up at Marabar and just kind of takes in a deep breath. He says,
"Do you know of this town?"
He takes a sip of his wine and he says, "Yes."
"Do you know this magistrate fellow?"
He takes another sip and he says, "Yes."
Badu kind of like cocks his head like, "Oh, you're annoying." He says,
What kind of a man is he?"
"Well, what do you mean?" "He's the reeve here, the magistrate."
Aye, but I mean, what kind of a man is he? Is he a man of honor? A man of treachery, deceit?
As you're talking, he kind of you see this wry smile kind of spread across his face. Oh, he's a fair man.
Is he a man of business? Of reason?
He would not be the Reeve if he wasn't.
And Badu kind of takes a drink, almost like a little bit relieved to hear, and he sets it down and he leans in a little bit to Mirabar and he says,
Aye, now you know I don't like you, but you made the decision to bring them to the magistrate. I want to know what you're thinking and why.
Kind of looks in the fire, and he's kind of rolling his goblet of wine a little bit in his hands, and you see the gold and gems on his rings just kind of reflecting, and he goes, honestly, I don't hold much stock in those ranges, and I'm a businessman. I could really care less if that one of them was killed.
But this had nothing to do with you. You could have just as easily not said a damn thing, and we would have taken care of it. What is your goal?
You see him looking at as you're talking to him, he's staring into the fire, and you see the shudder kind of go through his body, and he doesn't look at you, and it's almost like he's talking to the fire, and he goes, I saw it that night. Cold shadow, the night that Ranger Mallow was killed. I thought it came from me. I thought it was there to kill me.
and Badu kind of sits back in his chair. He gets it now a little bit, like where the whole shtick was coming from. He remembers what it was like when the thing first, descended upon them there at that house with, and the whole thing was happening. They're finding out about everything. He remembers that feeling, that he had of just dread when he's just looking at it, and he couldn't imagine. He can't imagine rather what it would feel like to think that might be coming to kill you, because at that point, that's what it was there for. So he kind of, he sits back and he looks up a little bit. He looks over at the fire that Mirabar is looking at, and he almost a little bit like to himself apologetic for the way that he kind of came about that, because it's reasonable, and just staring into that fire the same way, and he says,
I know how you're feeling, but the magistrate can't do anything about this, and that thing won't go away that easily.
and he'll look to Mirabar again, and kind of like put his hand out on the middle of the table to try and get his attention. And if Mirabar were to look him in the eyes, he would, as earnestly as possible, and the only time that he's looked at Mirabar without this scowl or malicious, just hatred in his eyes, he would look at him honestly, man to man, and he would tell him,
Let us go and take care of that thing. It's the only way.
The old man turns towards you as you do that, his crow-like face, his black, wary eyes meeting yours. He kind of shakes his head a bit, kind of confused. What would you do? What could you do?
We can unmake that ring. and destroy that thing
He
for good.
scoffs. How? Even
My
if that
friend, My
ring was a
friend.
ring of power, how can you do it?
I admit that's way over my head, but my friend knows something of it. Knows quite a bit, actually. He knows how we can do it. He knows where we can do it. He knows who can do it for us.
His
If
dark
you-
eyes, his dark eyes drift to the table with the dwarves. As you're saying that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah. And as he looks over there, he would say,
If you would come speak to the magistrate for us, on our behalf as well. You don't even have to defend them. Just speak to our honor. I promise you, we'll get her and that thing as far away from you as quickly as possible, and you'll never see it again.
He smiles at you and showing you that most of his teeth are still within his mouth, despite his ancient appearance. And he says, I have no intention of being anywhere near that ring again. I'm going to rest here for a few days, and then we're going to be on our way again.
Aye, a few days is too many.
And he kind of, his eyebrow kind of comes up at that. He goes, he doesn't say it, but when his eyebrow goes up, it's almost just like, what do you mean?
and he sits back again and kind of cocks his head, like nervously almost to just speak. And he says,
That thing could come at any time, at the drop of a hat. You don't understand. They locked her up. If she even so much as gets a darting glance, that thing could show up and wipe out this whole town. I need to get it out of here quickly.
He takes a kind of a worried gulp of his wine. He kind of wipes his lips with the back of his sleeve. And he says, well, how come you're alive? How come the dwarf is alive? If she had such power, why did she let you live? She could have easily just killed you. And her linen could have just snuck away. Us none the wiser.
It was only by her mercy and grace that we had built up enough rapport that she deemed us not worthy to be killed. You, on the other hand, have no such rapport.
I'll kind of punctuate that by taking a drink and like dead eyes locked on him, like turning his head to take a drink, see where he's at.
So the old man smiles at that, and you see him just kind of ease back into his furs, into his seat, and he says, "But I've already told you I have no intention of going anywhere near that ring. So it would seem that we are both to be safe."
You don't have to be too close for it to get you.
And he has this it's really quiet, kind of dry laugh. But my dear boy, if everything you are telling me is true, Berelas will not release that creature here in Bree. She would never kill all these innocent people, have their blood on her hands. If she would, you would be dead already. And so would Warry. I think I'll be perfectly safe right here. Well away from that.
Badu takes another deep sigh.
If there is even so much as ill will directed towards her, it will show up and it will kill. The only reason that I live is because I have no ill will towards Berelas. Only that wretched fool, Harlanen. That is the only thing that keeps me alive.
And he kind of like starts to pick up here.
Yeah.
If you can't even understand that much, then think back. Do you remember when it came, what you saw? Do you remember that fear?
Yeah, you just see the
Because I
color.
do.
You just see the color and the smile drain from his face, as he does remember, and he kind of shakes his head, and he's like, I don't have any ill will towards her.
And Badu just cuts him off if he goes to say anything. He puts his hand on the table pretty firmly, and he says,
You are a man of business. I know this to be true. I assume that you are also a man who knows when to place his bets. Are you willing to take the chance that what I'm telling you is not the utter truth?
Give me an intimidation roll.
Oh.
all right, here we go. Not what I wanted. That's a total 11.
You see him swallow hard, but you see him, and you see his eyes flick a bit, but his face itself doesn't change. And he says, "You're right. I am a businessman. And as a businessman, do you have a proposal?" And he kind of sets his cup of wine on the table, and he kind of leans a little bit closer towards you, kind of steepling his fingers.
Yeah. And Badu sits back in his chair. He's getting somewhere at least. Takes a deep breath.
You remember when those wolves attacked? Where were you?
He nods his head. He says, "Yes, I was
don't know.
guarding the horses
I
with the others."
don't know if you saw, but I managed to take at least 4 of those damn bloody mutts. I'd say that if I wasn't there, distracting them, me and my partner, that
He leans in and kind of meets his, steepled hands, and he says,
I'm not sure if you'd be here.
and he kind of just wants to gauge like how Mirabar feels about that.
You get a sense that that maybe that Mirabar may not know. He was probably too afraid, probably hiding. And definitely when the cold wraith appeared, he definitely was
Yeah.
hiding.
Yeah. So he'll just like, he kind of sees he's probably like thinking about it, like trying to think like, oh, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I was knee deep in a puddle of piss.
Yeah.
And so Badu cocks his head a little bit, punctuates with,
You didn't have enough men to fight off that many wolves. If it wasn't for me and my partner and something we happened to be carrying along that sent them away, you wouldn't have made it. You know that to be true. You know damn well you wouldn't have protected yourself.
so he kind of, so he says,
I would almost ask you if you'd be willing to pay for my room. Just out of gratitude. But you know what? I'd be willing to trade it for an hour of your time in front of the magistrate, telling them of our honor, which you know to be valid.
you see that sly, confident smile start to crease Mirabar's face. And he nods his head. He picks up his goblet of wine and he tips it to you and he says, I am a businessman. And he takes a sip.
And Badu, at that point, would lean back, almost surprised at himself, and pick up his mug and kind of tip it, nod his head at the same time, and be like,
That you are.
and take a drink. And he would set it down and say,
No, maybe you're not too bad.
and would kind of like reach his hand out, like very solemnly, just barely above the table to kind of shake hands and make an agreement.
Mirabar reaches out one of his frail skeletal hands and shakes yours. It looks dwarfed in your great in that great paw of yours.
And he just kind of gently but firmly at the same time, almost like he was holding on to a piece of paper or something, just shake his hand and retract. And before he gets up, he just mentioned,
Hey, so I'll try and set up a time with the magistrate tomorrow, and I'll come and get you so that you can speak on our behalf. An hour is all we need. I appreciate it.
He nods, and then he kind of turns back to the fire, kind of readjusting the furs around him.
And Badu stands up and grabs his drink and pushes the chair in all the way and kind of does almost a quarter bow and takes his leave, feeling successful. And he'll probably head over towards where Warry is, and probably right around the time that they're finishing up their conversation as well, and just kind of stand over Warry, pat him on the shoulder with a confident victory.
Perfect. So you see that look on his face, Warry, as you're finishing your own conversation with the dwarves. And beyond that, sometime after that, probably within the hour, you see Ederic come in through a different door into the common room of the Prancing Pony. He nods to the dwarves, he nods to you guys, and he makes his way over to sit by Mirabar, and you see them talking amongst each other. And the rest of the evening goes along pretty uneventful, unless there's any other conversations you guys would like to have. The evening would pass, and it would be sometime early in the morning that someone from the Reeve would come to the pony looking for the two of you.
The only conversation I guess we would probably have is I'm sure he would tell me what the heck just happened with him. And
probably when we went to our room, like Badu would close the door and kind of give his piece, like, all right, I got Mirabar for an hour to kind of sing our praises, and basically Badu would pitch to Warry trying to go before the magistrate and convincing the magistrate to let them take Berelas to go unforge this ring and then bring her back for sentencing, and like see if they can't compromise that way, like see if they can take her to begin with, but if anything, try and compromise with bringing her back for sentencing or something like that. It would basically what he would pitch to Warry and let him bounce any ideas off of that.
It's better than what I got. I got two young dwarves that are willing to do anything, and they're two older ones who don't want to have anything to do with it. So we'll go with your plan.
We'll try that first then.
Give me both of you guys. Give me a perception roll.
Is it versus an enemy?
No.
Okay.
Man. A 6.
19.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. So that would be 12, sorry, or passive of 16.
Yeah, 16. So sometime in the evening, you guys hear some sort of ruckus somewhere within the town of Bree. Sounds like raised voices, someone banging on maybe like a kettle, like a kettle drum, or was it a kettle drum? Or and it lasts for several minutes before it kind of deadens. Then there's some silence, and then you hear like heavy footsteps out in the hallway outside of your room.
And this is in the evening?
Yeah, sometime in the evening. You're not sure at what time. The candle has burned low.
Yeah, I'd probably be up panicked that it was the freaking thing coming from
Yeah,
Berelas.
you expect that you listen for that screech that it makes and that drop in temperature, but it never comes.
Do they like go past our room?
You hear some raised voices further in the pony, but they're muffled. You can't make them out.
Badu would kind of look at Warry like, "Whoa," and then like poke his head out. See.
Yeah, I'd do the same thing.
Like Scooby Doo that, and like I'd poke my head out, and then he's below me and pokes his head out.
Yeah, I'd investigate more out of paranoia that even if I didn't hear that screech of that thing, I'd probably be up with Berelas the whole time, just being like, watch Mirabar across from her scare her or threaten her enough that this thing goes off. You know, all these scenarios are playing in Warry's head.
Yeah. All of a sudden you hear at your door, and you hear a voice. Hey, it's me. Let me in. And it sounds like one of the younger dwarves.
I would open up, slowly open it up, I guess, and be like,
Yeah, you start to slowly open it up, and he kind of dwarf handles you and pushes the door open. He's standing there just in kind of like this. His undershirt is kind of half tucked into his trousers, and his small blonde beard is a little unkempt. And he looks at you. He goes, haven't you heard? Someone tried to break into the cells.
oh, Jesus.
What happened?
Well, two of the Bree men were killed, but the others, they were killed or captured.
Badu would kind of like get up, go get his stuff.
Yeah, I'd be getting dressed as he's telling me this stuff. Like, oh, man, I wanted a good night's rest. Come on, dang it.
Yeah, Badu's pissed.
So what happened? And which dwarf came to the door?
It was Narvig.
Okay. The eldest one.
Yeah, the eldest brother. He kind of just makes his way into his room. He sits down. He kind of frowns when he doesn't see like a pitcher of ale or anything in your room, thinking that you're kind of like gives you a look like, what kind of dwarf are you? But he sits down on the edge of one of your pallets, and he just starts to regale you guys with what he has heard. It seems like several men tried to force their way into the cells. They had managed to kill two of the watchmen from Bree before they were overpowered themselves. And two of them are in cells, but the others are dead.
Oh, great. I would look to Badu and just be like, don't tell me the ring's bringing people to her now.
And Badu would like be
Narvik's eyes go big. He goes, You don't think that You don't think that? They didn't say anything about cold wraith. He seems kind of struggling with what it was called.
Well, they may not have gotten to her, but just like those crazy wolves, something drew them near, and maybe it's that ring. It's
Give me an insight, Warry. Give me an insight roll.
Meanwhile,
I am
Lionel,
rolling
do
shit.
you think at any point we would have be able to expend some hit die at the pony?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you would have slept for a few hours, so you could definitely use a up to 3 hit die if you wanted.
Cool. 10 total for me.
10. Yeah, you think that's probably what it might be, that the evil of the ring would draw agents of evil toward it. But Badu, what would you think at that mention? You seem to have a sensitivity to agents of shadow, right?
Badu would yes, finally. Badu would have would look at Warry and kind of speak up.
Boy, maybe this is a good time to show off.
And kind of just, like maybe we could kind of make a name for ourselves to hopefully bolster our reputations with the Bree. I mean, he doesn't. I mean, as far as like bringing shadow people, does it really matter as long as we can get there and like beat some people up, look like good guys? Maybe it doesn't really matter, I guess, as long as the thing doesn't get out.
I'd just be worried about Berelas, but we should probably head over there. This is not going to be good.
Yeah. Narvik stands up, and you notice that his feet are bare. Shakes his head. He goes, "Save yourself the time. Locked up. They locked it all down. They won't. No one's getting near there. They even brought in some of them rangers."
And I'd probably look over to Badu, and I'm trying to remember what of the rangers else did we have. We took the amulet, but that got stolen by the wolf. Did we have anything else?
We had that letter for Malor, but I think we just took like Malor's essentials out of his stuff, but I don't think he had anything else like of importance.
Right.
Do you know if any of his stuff was branded, like his sword or anything?
More likely than not, any rangers operating in this area of would recognize Malor's sword.
Okay. I'd probably look over as his mention of that and just be like, well, we should make sure to take that stuff with us if we're seeing them tomorrow.
Narvik kind of hops up off the pallet, makes his way to the door, and he's about to leave when he turns around and goes, "I'm going to talk my father into letting me go to the to see the Reeve tomorrow." And he gives you both a nod and disappears into the hall.
As he leaves, I just thank him. Thank you, Narvik.
Badu would kind of like get up, still like stretch a little bit, like crack his back a little, and be like,
I guess I'll probably just go tell him to make sure the Berelas has her own cell. It's probably better that way.
Warry would nod.
So Badu would just kind of like, and like head out, and just head towards the magistrate building or whatever the official building was where they had locked up Berelas and
right.
Yeah.
You would guess, Badu, that as you make your way down the almost deserted streets of Bree, you see some lights, lanterns lit in windows. Obviously, others were awakened by the ruckus, and you could see there's quite a bit of activity around the the town center proper, where the estate building is, and you see several armed men walking along, standing in front of the building. As you start to approach, three of them walk forward. They have cloaks that range from a muted gray, greens, and browns. And they walk towards you, and they put their hands up, and they say, "Yo, friend, what's your business coming down here now?"
Yeah, and he would just like put his hands up, like, no, it's don't worry about it. And he would just kind of mention to them, be like,
I'm one of the key witnesses to the one of the events. I don't know. I got something important to tell whoever's in charge of the jail cells.
They nod as you say that, and the one in the lead says, "Well, you'll say it tomorrow. No one's passed tonight. 2 men have already died."
That's fair. That's fair. Can you tell them for me? It needs to be right now, because in light of recent events, it's important. Can you tell them for me?
You could tell me.
Yeah.
So, and he's probably just like standing over them, so he'd probably like get down on one knee or something and like stroke his beard a little bit and be like,
"All right, so there's a girl in there, Berelas, and there's another man in there, her linen. We brought him in yesterday. We turned him in. Berelas needs her own cell. Okay, whoever was here and attacked can't be in anywhere near her. They're probably here for her, so it's important she gets her own cell. Got it?"
Yeah, he nods and he says, "She's in her own cell."
All right.
and he just kind of puts a thumb up and he stands up, probably like pat him on the shoulder, be like,
"All right, good man. You guys are doing great work."
and
he kind of shakes his head like, "Okay."
he kind of like turn away and then like stop and he'd be like,
Wait, what were your names again?
Oh,
and reach his hand out to shake it and say,
Badu. Name's Badu.
he puts his hand out to shake yours and he says, "I'm Corvin."
and he would do so to the other two as well.
He does it to the other two as well.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
basically like try to get their names that might be important.
Another one says his name is Ransley, and the last is Harvid.
Gotcha. So Corvin is I gotcha. Didn't mean to put you on that spot. Thought they might have been.
Well, I'm just looking at my list. Well, I knew gotcha. I thought you might ask his name.
Yeah.
You threw me when you asked the other two guys' names.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. So Corvin was the guy I was talking to, and two other guys, but Corvin. Yeah. So he would just like shake his hand, basically try and be like, "Hey, I'm a good guy," and like I was just looking out for you guys. And then just head back.
Right. Yeah. So you head back, and the rest of the evening goes uneventful. And it's probably not long after you guys have breakfast that someone comes to summon you for audience in front of the Reeve, and it's like just maybe a young boy, probably late teens, probably a page of some sort, and dusky, sandy blonde hair, and kind of freckles on his cheeks. And he says, and weapons aren't allowed. So, well, no weapons are allowed. And he kind of scurries off.
All right, Warry would do as requested, except for he would try to hide a dagger somewhere on his body.
Yeah, that's fine. Just give me a sleight of hand roll. And
on.
Badu, will you just leave your weapons behind?
Badu will leave like his hand axes and he's got like a little spear. But he'll bring his axe and then just like turn it in at the front.
Okay,
He'll just like come with it and just like take it off and just like hand it to whoever's at the front, so he can collect it when they leave.
How does a nat 20 work?
Hides it up his arse.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I can't even find it for myself.
Yeah.
You gotta do a full cavity search to find that dagger.
you put it in your prison wallet.
So a total of 24 with that one.
You have to do an investigation check to find it when you go to pull it.
Right.
Oh, Jesus.
Perfect. So yeah, you guys make your way down there, and it seems to be that word has kind of spread. There's all sorts of people gathered, milling around outside in the square. And you guys approach, and you see that there's a few rangers there. You recognize Ransley from the night before, and he waves to you, Badu, because you kind of stand out. You're like, I mean, people of Bree are not tall. It's rare for them to reach 6 feet. The rangers are a bit taller though. Especially the ones that are of the Dunedain. And so he waves to you, Badu, recognizing you, and he waves you forward. Of course, not being able to see Warry in the crowd. And when you guys approach, he ushers you inside, and you see that many of the townsfolk have kind of gathered, and you see standing off to the side behind this small rail, you see Berelas and her linen still having that smug smile upon his face, the one that he had when he was put into the jail cell. You see an old ancient man sitting in this high-backed chair carved of wood with oak leaves and oak and acorns, and he has this thin it's not called a tiara. What is it called for a guy? It's not a crown, but anyways, he has this thin circlet of silver with copper like ivy wrapping around it. He has long white hair, and very, very much like Mirabar is old. This man looks old too, but he has piercing blue eyes, and a thin mustache and a very thin goatee. And he's just sitting in this chair, and he watches you enter. And as you do so, another young boy, probably in his early 20s, steps forward. He has striking blue eyes too. You mark him as some relation of this man, this Reeves man. And he says, "I am Cole, aide to the Reeve. Who comes before the Reeve?"
Warry would speak up and just say, "Warry," and kind of like bow a little bit, I guess.
And Badu just like looking down on him.
Badu.
Yeah. You guys are probably about 15 or 20 feet away, standing in the
Still
center.
looking down.
Yeah. And they're kind of like on this raised dais, a few feet. But yeah, you would probably look eye to eye to them. But as you introduce yourselves, Cole nods his head, and he steps aside, and the Reeve leans forward. He says, "I am Twick Greenleaf. I have been Reeve of these lands for many years, and in that time, never has one brought forward a charge of murder. But it would seem," and he kind of leans back in his seat as he lets kind of the words sink in as he says them, "it would seem that that's what we have here today. I am told that you are witness for Berelas. Well, he says the woman called Berelas, but not witness for the man, her linen.
Aye.
Warry would nod as well.
He kind of leans back. He puts his chin in his left hand. I will hear your testimony. And he looks to the both of you.
Badu, like, after like a pause, like looks at Warry, back at him, and starts like looking back, but like
Like at the same time, or like, I don't.
Warry turns to him and is like, he probably means one at a time.
Yeah, when you say that, you see the man frown. And he says, I will not have you make fun of this court.
Badu just like shrugs and like looks around, like,
Wait, sorry, just wasn't clear. I did. Sorry.
just shuts up.
He says, I have already heard from one called Mirabar. The court will hear what you have to say.
Well, what question would the court like answered?
You will tell me what you know of this murder and who is culpable in it.
All right, hold on one second. Get my notes. The murder of Malor, or Terry Mack, as some know him,
Yeah, he
was
nods
done.
when you say that. He nods.
Was done not too far from here in an inn by a creature that dealt with ice and shadow and fear.
He frowns as you say that, but he doesn't say anything.
Sorry, what was that? My headset cut out.
Oh yeah, as you're saying that last bit, he frowns, but he doesn't say anything. He doesn't interrupt you.
This creature, I do say, killed Malor Terry Mack. It was brought forth by a ring of shadow that the female Berelas carries. Whenever she is frightened or attacked or under duress. Why this creature killed Malor or Terry Mack, I could not say. But after was done, this person, Herlonen, dumped his body into a well to hide all evidence. And I kind of like nervously like just be like, well, that's kind of it. Like that's the short of it.
He would lean forward. He would look at you, Badu, and say, is there anything you will add to what he says?
Yeah, and so Badu would look down at Warry and kind of like think for a second and be like,
Aye. This Erlinen is an agent of the shadow. He's an evil man who means no good to anybody. Berelas is a young girl who's being forced by this man to do wretched things. Your Honor, this ring is dangerous. And it's something far above the power with the court.
and he would leave it at that.
So you would have me believe that this woman who was complacent as Terry Mack was slain. And he frowns again and he says, by a creature of shadow, you say?
Aye.
Or I would say I at the same time.
We're twins.
You want me to believe that some creature of fantasy slew a ranger?
Your Honor, we could prove it to you, but that would put everybody here's lives at risk.
Yeah, when you say that, you see Berelas kind of like shudder and take a step, like a pleading step towards you, and a pleading look on her face, and her hand kind of just absently kind of makes its way up between her breasts, and she shakes her head.
Badu would like hold a hand up to her, like, I got it. It'd be like, he would just reiterate,
Your Honor, this not be the best setting to be providing such evidence as a creature of shadow.
You may not need to just take our word for it. There were a few who saw this creature and what it can do. And if you've had a look at if you've had a look at Terry Mack's body, you would probably see evidence of it as well.
So you would have me believe that this woman was under the power of this man, and he points a slender finger towards her linen, who just looks at him defiantly, and that she could control some creature of darkness that killed this ranger. Is that correct?
Your Honor, control is a very strong word for such a situation.
I asked if that was correct.
Nay, she can't control it. But he was the one making her do such things.
She can't control it. Really?
I don't believe so.
He tilts his head to the side.
and he punches.
To my knowledge, no. I've seen it, Your Honor.
Well, would it surprise you to know that I heard testimony here just today, this very day, that says she can?
It would not surprise me. I'd honestly believe you heard that. I don't think it's necessarily true. I've seen it myself, firsthand, and I'm not a man who fears much.
And he kind of like gestures.
Why did you bet?
And he gestures to his stature and great girth, and he says,
I'm not a man who fears much, but I would give anything to not have to see that creature look at me again.
And as much sincerity as he could put in it, and probably fear too, to an extent, he just like looking the magistrate in the eye, just as earnestly as possible, like, this thing is scary. Don't mess with it.
You have been silent, dwarf.
I'm sorry.
Is what you told me true?
It is. We don't know much about this creature. Only that every time she is in danger, it defends her. Other than that, we can't say if she controls it or not. It didn't attack us when we stopped it, when we defended her.
So it would seem that I find myself. It would seem that I find myself at a rather difficult and tenuous position. If I am to pass judgment on this woman, as the law would dictate, if you murder another, then your life is forfeit. But you are telling me that if that is the sentence I give this woman, then I potentially bring death upon those that would try to carry out this sentence. Is that what you are telling me?
Warry would nod a little bit and just be like, you must understand that she also did not kill Terry Mack.
But she did not prevent it, did she?
Neither did Haloinen.
I
she
used
could
to
have
say she
prevented
could prevent.
How can you prevent something that automatically happens?
Did she not stop the creature from killing you? As testimony was given earlier to me?
Like we said, we do not believe she can control it.
We bared no threat to Berelas, only to her, to this man, her companion. I believe that be the only reason that we stand here today before you.
Yeah. As you guys are talking, you see Herlinen, and he gives you that twisted smile. And you can just see the glee in his eyes. I do not make these sorts of judgments lightly. But the lore master is going to ask that you both give him a persuasion roll.
Well, I was like, what?
Sure, I could do cartwheels on the ground. Does that help?
Could you do a performance roll, please?
Just as bad as my persuasion. Oh, jeez.
16.
7.
Okay. So averages out to right around 12. Okay. Damn it. He sits back and there's long seconds of silence. And then he kind of like, the matter is clear before me. Herlinen, and he says that, and one of the men behind him kind of moves him forward. For your part in the death of the Ranger Terry Mack, there is no judgment other than death for you. You will be brought to the tree at the crossroads, and from there, you will be hung till you are dead. And at that point, you hear this wail from Herlinen, and his legs go like weak, and it's only the man behind him that keeps him from falling. And that's the last you hear of him as they kind of drag him from the I don't know what to call. I guess it's a meeting room, not a courtroom. Berelas, your fate is not so clear for me. I will see this ring that everyone has spoken about. Bring it forth. And when he says that, Berelas takes a step forward, and she draws forth on its slender gold chain the ring, and she lets it fall upon her chest. And you see him lean forward in his seat. You know, he's probably about 12 feet away from where she is standing. So is it true if you are threatened, a creature of darkness will protect you? And she nods her head. It is also true that this ring can be unmade. She nods her head again. A smile crosses the Reeves' face. I have made my decision. Berelas, for your part in the death of the ranger, Terry Mack. I sentence you to the custody of the dwarf Warry, so that he might take you so that you can unmake this ring.
Who kind of lets out a deep breath. And,
there's almost like this shocked, murmur that goes through those
Warry has
assembled.
like an audible oh.
He puts his hand up to silence everybody. And he turns to you, Warry. He says, are you acceptable to taking custody of the woman Berelas?
I am.
And I wish you luck. Because if everything that I am told is true, it will not be an easy journey. The agents of the Dark One's eyes will turn towards you, drawn to the evil of that ring. But I wish you luck. And he turns to Berelas and he says, do not make me regret my decision today. If I find that you have turned on your word and that you have not repented, then I will do everything in my power to make sure that you see the same justice and fate as your companion. And he reaches over and there's this little block of wood on the arm of his chair and he claps it down 3 times. Clap, clap, clap. And he says, release her to the dwarf. And he stands up and he gives you one final nod, Warry, as he turns and leaves out a back door.
I'll also say before he leaves as he's nodding, Warry would just be like, sir, as much as luck will help us on the way, we could use all the help we can get. And he kind of just stands there with this sheepish child asking for the world for Christmas on his face.
Tewick stands up. He's just starting to turn to leave. And he hears your request and he turns and he looks at you. He goes, if I'm not mistaken, Master Dwarf, you are from Erebor, the Lonely Mountain.
That is correct.
He smiles. He goes, I know your people well. You are a clever lot. You will figure it out. I have no men to spare. And he nods and he turns briskly and walks out. And one of the men standing over where Berelas and her linen are leads her Berelas over to you. She's returned the ring underneath the under her blouse. And she smiles at the two of you and she says, thank you, I think.
Hey, don't worry about it.
And Badu kind of like looks off like he's a badass. Like,
Yeah, I was-
And
the
that, I
lumbering
think,
oaf finally did something right.
and that is where we're going to end this session with you guys having saved Berelas and now on your journey to unmake this ring. Well done, gentlemen. Even with some rough rolls along the way.
yeah, right.
Oh my! I had like 2 high rolls and 12 shitty rolls.
So Carol and Wim, Wim just came in. Sorry, Wim, you just caught the end. But Carol, thanks for giving us a listen. And anyone else that happens to give this a listen, thanks for, and please make any comments. I want to thank my players, Sean and Kyle, for giving us yet another great session. I really love the way you guys are really becoming close and fast friends. Now you're twins. And with that, we're going to end the broadcast.